So what if the version of success that you've been chasing was never really yours to begin with? Maybe it was just the one that you were praised for wanting. I don't even know if I want to talk about this sometimes because it's strange. Because for me growing up, I was that kid who was just good at many things, like really good. I got top marks in class. I did well across the sports fields like cricket, rugby, football, tennis, golf. I wasn't even training obsessively. I wasn't even trying to prove anything. It was just in me. But now when I look back, I think it wasn't magical luck. It was compounding. My brother and I were constantly outside inventing games or playing anything that we could. And every hour we spent doing that was building something in the background that others weren't clocking. At 12, I was playing under 16s cricket, top division, leading wicket taker that season. But even then, I don't really think I understood what hard work actually was. I mean, I could push myself, sure. I had moments where I dug deep, but I didn't build the muscle for resilience. Not the way that it truly gets tested. I didn't learn to stay with discomfort because things always had a habit of working out. And with my personality being introverted and self-critical, that created its own dynamic. It's not just nature or just nurture, it's the way that they interact with each other. Because I was born wired with a certain way, then the wiring got reinforced through the experience and the response that I had. These environments that I was in, the expectations that were placed on me, the patterns that I saw and absorbed without even realizing I was absorbing them. And most of the time, when I was younger, I wasn't even making the choices. I was just doing what was expected of me. And in hindsight, I know that that was a choice as well. A choice to keep the peace, a choice to avoid being reprimanded, and a choice to basically stay safe in the environment that I wanted to be in. I didn't like conflict, so I also learned to anticipate what would avoid it. I'd show up, I'd do things as I was told to do them, and I'd keep things smooth. And that all reinforced around me because I'd hear how people I loved spoke about others, those who questioned, those who acted differently, those who disrupted the script. They were all labeled as difficult or rebellious or problematic, and you name it. And that shaped me because if the people I loved were saying those things, then there must be a truth to that. That must be what's true, and that must be the version of life that I should follow. But the paradox is that I asked a lot of questions, and it wasn't to be difficult. It was because I needed to understand. I've always needed to understand, and I wanted to know why. I needed to try see the other angle, not to challenge someone for the sake of it, but because I genuinely believed in another view that might hold something worth seeing. And yet most of the time, the people I asked didn't want to go there. Either they didn't have the time or they weren't going there themselves to understand. Whether that was religion, family, school, there were many moments where I could sense that the depth I was looking for wasn't going to be explained to me. So I learned to carry those questions by myself. And a lot of those questions I still have. Some of them I've answered. But for instance, even in religious classes, I was bumped up years ahead of me. I think I was like 13 and I was sitting with 17-year-olds. But it wasn't ego, it was curiosity, and it still is. I want to see the full picture, and I still do. And the truth is, I've had to learn to trust myself more, because that was lacking. And that's been the real work for me. Creating a distance from the version of me that I thought I had to be, because the version of me, that version brought comfort, or at least a false sense of security and safety. It was like a shell, it felt like a home, predictable, manageable, but it wasn't really a home. It was just the one that I knew how to navigate. And I got pretty good at navigating. I mean, I could read the room, I could predict reactions, anticipate outcomes. It helped me at work, it helped me in relationships, it made me reliable. I worked for Amazon, I worked for the biggest companies in the world. But the version of peace wasn't actually peace. It was basically a different state of being within peace. Real peace, that came much later. And over the past couple of years, I've gone to places within myself that I wouldn't want to wish on anyone else. So like deep physical, mental, emotional exhaustion, like rock bottom of the nervous system, that kind of place where existing feels heavy. And I remember that I got chickenpox after coming back from LA, and out of nowhere, like I was meant to go back into the flow, back at work, but I couldn't move. And I still have scarring from it. And in that moment, nothing mattered more than my own health. Not success, not money, not status, not even the things I deeply love. You could have given me all of that and more, and I would have turned it down. I literally just wanted my body to regulate, to breathe again, and to have the kind of those moments realigns your priorities. That's when I started really questioning the career I was in. Like I could feel it, the disconnect, the misalignment, and at the same time I was putting more energy into my startup, which now thankfully is growing and flourishing. But at the time it was me realizing where my energy was naturally flowing. Then came the relationships. Some felt right, some didn't. Some doors opened, some closed. And I started to ask the hard question of why? Why can't I make it with this tribe or this community of very influential people? And like, why don't I have it? And every time it came back to me, not in a self-blaming way, but in a self-responsibility kind of way. That something I was raised with, like not being selfish, not being arrogant, and at times it meant I didn't take up space. I didn't trust my voice. I didn't speak in a room even when I knew I had something valuable to say. But now I'm learning that peace doesn't come with silence, and it doesn't mean silence. Peace means truth, and truth is connection. And connection starts with yourself, because you feel yourself. So don't get me wrong, I still have days where I'm moody, days where I'm off, nights where I can't sleep, like last night, couldn't sleep. But now I can bring myself back to myself. I return, I self-regulate. I hold myself in a way that I never did before because I understand something now that I didn't before. You are not your emotions. Your emotions are a temporary state. And it's not just a motivational quote, right? It's a truth. The feelings you experience are signals. They're not your identity. So saying, I am tired, wires your system to define you as tired. But when you say, I'm feeling tired, that's a space between you and the feeling. And that creates a choice. It gives you access to observe, to shift, and to reset. And that's what I've been training over the past couple months, is the ability to recognize a feeling without becoming that feeling. The ability to sense what I want to feel next, and not just to chase like cheap dopamine, but to truly feel what's aligned for me in that moment. That presence, that self-regulation, that's the rewiring that I'm after. Because sometimes a little thing goes wrong and you feel a flicker of frustration like this morning. And in that moment you get to ask, is this worth letting go of my peace? Is this going to spill into the next hour, into the next day? Is this something I want others to have carried into conversations with them? Because if I repeat it enough, that will become me. That's how my personality is formed, repeated emotional states. So now I choose, and it's not perfect, but it's conscious that there's a shift. And a part of how I shift my state comes down to sound. It comes down to music. It always has been. I didn't know how to name it back then, but it was a thing. I just knew that music and sound could work for me in ways that other things couldn't. And even years down the line, like I've learned to realize that music impacts your frequency, your breath, your focus. I've been the top 1% of Spotify listeners for years now, and over 5,800 artists last year I listened to. That's how much I believe in tuning your state of being. So this is where I kind of want to land, is if you want to feel real connection, you've got to come back to yourself, not the version of you that people approved of, not the one that you kept rehearsing, but the version underneath all of that. Because there's a version of you which is waiting to breathe. There's a version there that maybe the world won't see at all, but you can. You can start to live from it. You can start to choose it. You can start to do with it what feels different. You feel lighter, you feel clearer, you'll feel more at peace. Because everything isn't perfect, but because you've stopped abandoning yourself and taken the work to do it, you start to change the patterns. And you start to see patterns. What keeps repeating? What keeps triggering you? What keeps breaking down in relationships and arguments and your pursuit of love, of purpose, of expression? Look there. And look with honesty. Look without judging yourself. Just observe what's there. Observe the patterns. And then sit with it. Sit with it alone. Like, find some time for yourself and let the real answers come through. Because it's not going to be instant clarity. You just need presence with it and from an observing perspective. And then try a new behavior, a new choice, a new response, and track what happens within those same patterns. And if it brings you closer to the version that you feel most aligned to, keep going. And if there's peace instead of panic, like, double down on it, but do it intentionally, because your system is wired in the old, the familiar, the conditioned, and you have to interrupt that. You have to catch yourself in the middle of it and choose differently again and again. And eventually that will become the new you, the new version of you. That's when the real change happens, and that's when the habits are formed to the version that you want to become. That's when you start to become someone that the old version of you wouldn't necessarily recognize, and for the first time, that might be a good thing.